Katy Jean is a colleague of mine at SaltWire, and this past weekend, she took a dip in Halifax Harbour. You heard that right. Katy joins me now. Katy, why did you swim in Halifax Harbour?
Yeah, so I have a bit of a backstory to it. My son is disabled, and I was looking into the Special Olympics for him because he is also very energetic. And when I went to their website, I saw that they had a polar plunge, which you could raise money to support Special Olympics. And I thought, oh, that could be fun. I'll throw it on Twitter. I put it on Twitter and said I would do the plunge for $1,000. And I was kind of hoping it would just fizzle or people would say, I don't want you to jump in the harbor. I'm not going to give you money. But I ended up raising $1,000 within 2 days. I'm still very conflicted about that. I'm not sure if I have really supportive people in my life or if I have a lot of people that want to throw me into the harbor. But regardless, I said I would do it. So I raised over $1,000 and in the end raised over $4,000.
And I saw some of your fundraising efforts as you were posting it, your journey on social media, in particular, Twitter. What did it mean to you to see that level of fundraising? And I think you were one of the top fundraisers, if I'm not mistaken. Can you also speak to that?
Yeah. So, I really didn't think I was even going to get to my 1,000. So when people were still donating, and for such a great cause, I wasn't saying give me $1,000 or give me $4,000 to do it. I was wanting to give the Special Olympics $4,000 to do it. But going from that, going into the harbor was absolutely not something I wanted to do. And I think that kind of drove that point home that I really did not want to do it. But I would for Special Olympics.
That brings me to this past weekend, Saturday. It was a lovely day, but it was chilly. What's going through your mind just before you go down those steps and hit the water?
Well, I kind of thought of it in the perspective I did when I was pregnant. A lot of people are afraid when, to deliver a baby. And I was just like, well, there's only one way to do this. So you kind of just have to accept the inevitable. I said I would do it, and I'm going to do it. So I had a whole outfit. I wore a Dartmouth shirt and maritime tartan shorts with fishnets in case fish were down there because I was going into the harbor. And first I got into that outfit because it was already cold and I kind of wanted to already be cold by the time I got into the water. And then they light the torch. They do the talk. The HRP and some RCMP were there too. And we started walking down and all I could think was, what have I done? I have to do it. I'm going to do it. But why did this 2-second idea? Why did I commit to this so deeply? But yeah, so once my name was called, it was just like, all right, bud, let's do this.
Something you mentioned as well on your social post after you went down into the harbor was who you went down the steps and into the harbor with. Who was that?
Yeah, so I had no idea. I didn't actually really know how the whole process worked. First, a bunch of police went in and some teams went in that the Sackville Bravehearts, I think they were called. They were a bunch of Special Olympians raised money together. So they went into the water together. And then I didn't know. I thought everyone that fundraised went together into the harbor. And they say, and who's Katy Jean? So I put up my hand and they said, oh, wow, you were the top fundraiser. We were really excited to meet you. And the constable, I can't remember her name right now, of the HRP was saying really nice things about me that I had no idea. I was just thinking, I'm just getting in the water and going home. And she said, we would really like a Special Olympian to join you. She wants to join you. And she was the torch holder. I didn't actually get her name. And I looked back on video that someone else had and they didn't tell me her name. So if somebody's watching this and you know who the torch holder for the Special Olympics was, please tell me because I'd like to speak with her. But yeah, so I was joined going down the steps with a Special Olympian, which was really, really nice.
Yeah, a really nice moment for sure, especially given your reasoning for wanting to do this. I've been on the ferry going across the harbor many times. I've been on harbor cruises. I've always worried about falling into the harbor, but I've never actually thought about going in and letting the harbor water touch me for a brief swim. What's it like? What was it like when the water hit you, and what was your experience?
So I actually have reoccurring nightmares of going into the harbor, of, the bridge breaking, or some bizarre thing where I had to walk over a wharf and I fall off. So I also have that. I spoke with public health. They said the water was fine, but if you are from Halifax, it wasn't always fine, and that's kind of a psychological thing. But yeah, when we were going down the stairs, my feet went in first, and then I was up to my hips, and it wasn't as cold as you would think. It was. Think of freezing and like just a little bit above that. It was tolerable somehow. But yeah, it was more psychological than physical.
Fair enough. And I've got to ask you as well, there was a really neat picture afterwards of you kind of laying on your back, arms over your head with a caption. I know a little bit of the backstory or the story of it, but kind of talk me through that picture, who took it and what the caption was.
That was my mom took the picture. So when I went into the water, I made a really bad mistake. I kind of just threw myself in, and I ended up going in sideways and ended up on my back, and I panicked. So I ended up opening my eyes underwater and my mouth. I know what the harbor tastes like now, and I'll never forget it. So when I got up to the surface, because I had opened my eyes underwater, I couldn't see. And I just started swimming, more thrashing. And I didn't even know which direction I was going in. So I got up the steps, and I was still half panicked. And I went to warm up. I was with my mom, and I just wanted to go and process what I had just done. So we were sitting on the pier, and it was a really nice sunny day. And my thought process was the wood will absorb some of the water, and also the wood was warm. So I just kind of laid down and hoped that the pier would help me. But yeah, I was a broken man on a Halifax pier was the caption. And I get the Rogers song now.
A very Nova Scotian thing to do, indeed. Final thing for you, Katy. You talked about how this was something that you didn't really want to do in terms of going into the harbor, but you were doing it because the fundraising was so important to you, especially given, obviously, your son. What would you say to anybody that may have a similar situation coming up, either in the near future or even further down the road of, they'd love to do something to raise some funds, but they may not want to do the activity for their fundraising? What would you tell them from your experience?
Just do it, really take the risk and push yourself. I in August, I jumped out of a plane, and then last month I flew one, and I had two major fears in my life, and one was donating blood, which I did a few weeks ago for the first time, and the other was the harbor and water. So, there's only one way to get over fears, and that's to face them. So if you're ever thinking of fundraising, that's a really bonus way to do it.
It is great to have that attitude and to do things that you may not want to do or thought you'd never do. And that way, as you go through life, you'll have fewer regrets. Also, I should ask you, I mentioned that you're a colleague of mine here at SaltWire. Tell me about some of the things that you do, and where can folks find you at SaltWire?
I do video with SaltWire. I also have a weekly column in the Chronicle Herald with SaltWire, the Nova Scotian. So you can find me on SaltWire's YouTube. You can find me in the Herald on the weekends. And you can find me on Twitter at Katy not IE, which is how you spell my name, Katy not IE.
Katy, thanks for taking the time to do this, and good on you for taking on this challenge and raising the funds that you did and being that top fundraiser and taking a dip in the harbor. Well done.
Yeah, well, I said I'll do it again next year for the same amount, so maybe more.
We'll check it out next year. Thanks, Katy.
Thank you.